Hello and welcome to a new Let's Play of the mystery visual novel Rei-Jin-G-Lu-P. So this is a blind Let's Play. I've never seen any of this game before, but I've heard very good things. It's very highly regarded, and what I have heard is sounded like it would be something right up my alley, so let's get into there.
ようこそノベルアドベンチャーゲームレイジングループの世界へ。私は単なるどれに足らないインターフェース的キャラクターです。
Rikaku.
そうですね。
So already I don't buy this. You are on the main page, the main screen. So I'm assuming there's probably more to her than just being part of the interface. I'm assuming she's also going to be part of the story. But we will go along with that for now. Rikaku.
ここでは初めてプレイなさる皆様に
I am playing it
こ
for the
の
first
ゲー
time.
ムの遊び方を簡単にご説明いたしたいと存じます。いくつか変わったところのあるゲームですので、最初はぜひとも全部の説明をお読みいただきたいと思い
I
ま
was
す。
planning on it.
特に動画配信をなさる方は4
Oh shit.
動画や資料についてだけでも必ずお読みくださいね。
Okay, is that coming up
最
out
後ま
forward?
で読んでいただけたら私のセクシーな画像が見られません。世間は厳しゅうございます。さめざめ。さて何からご説明いたしましょう。
Alright, well let's start with this.
レイジングループはノベルゲームものですから、それら全てを配信されてしまいますととても困ってしまいます。かといってお楽しみは大勢で分け合いたいもの。それというわけで私どもは動画、ちなみにその範囲は最初のメイン、具体的にはシナリオチャート上の4潜入の9入村方法はで選択肢が出るまでが配信可能範囲です。相当な長さがございますので配信のネタにしばらく、むしろ全文読み上げる派の配信主様は喉が潰れないか心配です。ちなみに動画配信の折にはお知らせ機能をぜひともご利用ください。この後現れる選択肢で動画配信終了のタイミングで突然謎の羊が出現。そこで収録はお開きとしていただき、あとは考察やら。ちなみに今はオフの状態ですよ。
Alright, well, we'll set that on.
はい。また切り替えたいときはゼロ導入のここに来てくださいね。
Let's go to the beginning.
レイジングループはノベルアドベン小説のように文章で物語が綴られ、世に言う人狼ゲームと深く関係する物語ではありますが、人狼ゲームそのも
So
の
I
で
am
はない
familiar
の
with those
で
games.
ご注意を。
That is part of what interests me, is that it's related to this. Also, the only video game like I've played that's like a combination of like mystery and like that is Your Turn to Die, which I absolutely love. So
スーパー人工知能リカコ20人と永遠の人狼ゲームを楽しめるとご期待された方、すみません。さめざもちろんただの小説ではございません。時折現れる
it's quite amazing.
物語が変化する
A visual novel with choices.
なのです。キャラクターたちが生き生きと描写され、生き生きとボイスを喋ります。作品世界に没頭できる。せっかくの声をお楽しみになるためや、突如絶叫が響き渡らないために
I do have headphones
イヤ
on.
ホンなどされるのも
Otherwise, you get really bad echoes when you with your mic.
とっても大ボリュームな物語ですので、没頭しすぎて
Obscenely lengthy.
なんてことになる。
I've read Higurashi, I've read Yumaneko. I think I can handle this.
なお、もうご存知かと思いますが、レイジングループは架空の殺人事件、恐怖事件を扱ったお話です。
Oh no.
サスペンス、スリラー、ホラー、そして
That sounds like me.
解決するお話がお好きなあなたにもちろんこの物語は作り事で実際の人物や
Okay.
団体、作中の学問知識、歴史、宗教、神話、科学以外等の知識は 創作を含みます。テストに書いたら0点です。サメサメ。そして描かれる犯罪や惨劇については現実にそんな行為を推奨する意図など、そんな感じで現実との区別をしっかりおつけになったらもう大丈夫。本作を思いっきり楽しんでくださいね。レイジングループの独特な機能について、レイジングループのストーリーは複雑に分岐しております。どう分岐したのか管理するのはでも心配無用。本作ではシナリオチャートという便利機能が採用されています。メニューを開けばチャートという機能にいつでもアクセスでき、さらにこのシナリオチャートを使えば入ったことのあるもう選択肢では必ずセーブとは申しません。これでいつでも選択肢は選び直せますので、ご心配なく。
That's pretty different from most games.
シナリオチャート機能についてはまた後でもう一度使いどころの説明がありますので、よくわからなくても大丈夫ですよ。次にキーについて、レイジングループの物語分岐は全て選択肢を選んだ瞬間に発生いたします。その代わりいくつかの選択肢はキーと呼ば、このキーを探すことこそレイジングループの大きな目的だと言えるでしょう。その探し方は実際に手に入った時に説明があるそうですのでご心配なく。ちなみに一度キーを入手して解放されたルートはセーブデータと関係なく開きっぱなしになります。逆に言うとキーが未入手の状態にはロードしても戻れます。それで読めなくなる文章はありませんのであまり困ることはないと思います。キーがない状態に戻して遊びたいという既得なお方には全データを初期化する手もあります。ご利用は計画的に。独特な機能に加え、レイジングループにはテキストウィンドウを隠す、バックログ、ロード、セーブ、既読文章のスキップ、ロードやセーブは大体オートセーブ機能もあるにはありますが、新しいチャプターに入るた霧のいいところまで読むか、シナリオチャートをご利用いただくか、手動セーブを活用してくださいね。次にメニューから開けるオプション設定からは、ただ全部説明すると皆様がお眠になってしまわれるのでお願いいたします。
Okay, we are ready to go.
とても長くなってしまいました。それでは限りなく濃い霧と血煙の向こう、繰り返される絶望と人狼村の真実をどうかその目でペコリ。
511. So I do know this game also involves like time loops and stuff, so pretty weird combination. Werewolves, time loops, mafia. Oh, I could be reading that. Welp, I'm lost. Maybe taking a ride down an unknown road with no sat-nav on me wasn't a good idea. Satellite navigation? I just followed the roads so I figured I wouldn't get lost, but now I was in some deep shit. No, cool it. This isn't a big deal. I sighed, took note of the fact that I'd gotten lost in my pocket journal, and then pulled out a map. Suddenly a rush of memories flitted into my mind. Oh, so it tells you straight out that you don't have that key. Okay. Huh. That sounds like that could be a big jump. So that would be you remembering past loops and then going a different way. Huh. I kind of thought that would be... Like in most games, I think like that, they would just not show you that. And then you'd have to, like, there'd be like a true end or something like that, and you do it once and then you restart. But okay. Somehow I kept myself from remembering those things because I haven't experienced them yet. This is the first loop. I'd gone on this trip to forget.
もうやめやめ目の前の現実を直視人生はシンプルつまりこの道のごとく真っ暗で道案内もなく進むか返すか考えることはそれだけ
Alright, so Haruaki Fusashi. Haruaki Fusashi. That last name's hard to say. Haruaki. Oh, I forgot. The last time I'd seen a sign, it was still out, meaning that I got lost after the sun had set. Sure, it was my own fault for just guessing which intersection I'd been passing through, and that it had taken me 2 hours to conclude that I was lost. Crazy to think that just 2 hours of aimless driving got me almost completely surrounded by mountains. That's not that surprising. It's been 2 hours, dude. They extended as far as I could see. If you flipped the scenery upside down and shook it, it's unlikely even a shred of civilization would tumble out. Besides, the asphalt below, my sweet ride, and the lamppost above, the first one in a while, mind you, there was nothing man-made here. The pocket map I had wasn't detailed enough for me to figure out where I was.
進むか
I'd go as far as I could. Worst comes to worst, I could just camp at the side of the road. Two hours later, I deeply regretted ever thinking that. Basically, camping wasn't an option. This mountain road had no side to camp on. A dump truck I'd passed barely even fit on it. I'd also had my first close encounters with wild forest animals. I'd already seen 2 boars and 3 deers in the 2 hours alone. I guess got werewolves in the story, so watch out. One of the deer had run parallel to my bike while intently staring at me, and I had no idea what to think of that. That's weird. Just imagining that deer just going right parallel to you staring at you. I felt like it could smell my fear, and did it just to make it worse. How dare the thing do that to a human? We're kings of this planet, damn it. I'd have to remember to eat some venison once I came back to civilization. Wow. Anyway, camping out here was a bad idea. I'd ended up either as roadkill or animal food. And yet I didn't back out. Why? Because I'm a pretty warped sort of guy, and I won't pretend otherwise. That was actually the reason why my once comfortable relationship had gone awry, and why I'd gone on this stupid trip. Still, despite acknowledging that, I chose to keep moving forward. It wasn't like I'd find a place to stay if I went back. I was actually starting to think that this experience might make a good conversation piece sometime down the road. There's this one time I was driving, this deer was just going right next to me and staring at me. That's why I eat so much venison nowadays. It's really getting late at this point. Where would these roads take me anyway? It'd probably be pretty disappointing. Soon enough, the road became flat. I was out of the mountain pass. The forest remained abundant, though I still didn't see much. Even so, the streetlights and signs were enough to make me feel I was again nearing civilization. Was streetlights the right expression for lights in a forest? I'd have to look that up. Are they streetlights? Or is it the moon? No, it's gotta be lights in the forest. As the road grew less rugged, I realized just how exhausted I was. All this bike handling had left my hands really sore, too. I really had to rest. Suddenly I saw something unexpected. Powerful, colorful, artificial lights. A convenience store? Huh. Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was next to an intersection between the road I was on and another, even thinner road that could probably support only a single car. This definitely sounds like a horror story right now. And just going out in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden you come upon this strange place. The sea of trees ended, giving room for the majestic child of our consumerist society. Yeah, that was an exaggeration. Apparently even a damn store was big enough, or a big deal for someone who had just stepped out of the wild. It was called Fresh Mark. I'd seen several of them a few times during the day. It was probably a local franchise. This building didn't look all that old. At least the parking lot looked a lot smoother compared to the roads. This kind of has like a nightmare feel to it. Like, have you seen several of them, or have you just seen this one store over and over? It was a pretty weird place to build something like that, though. Was I close to a settlement, or did they actually make a profit off of lost travelers? That seems like not a lot of business. I'd just ask that or something. A local shopkeeper was bound to know what was around these parts, not to mention I was thirsty. I was welcomed by a weird chime sound. It looked like a normal convenience store. There were goods on the shelves, a counter to the left, and... Whoa. The worker at the counter was so mean-looking it was scary. She was so imposing I wouldn't have doubted if someone had told me she was in charge of some ladies' armies corps. Was that supposed to be a greeting? It was so damn cold it actually gave me chills. Was this shape shadier than it had appeared? Was I about to be stupidly overcharged? Was this how this place made a profit? By taking advantage of lost people and basically beating them out of their money? Shit, that was scary. Clearly, the Wonderland had only just begun. Woohoo! I sure was excited for the beating. I grew more nervous and less enthusiastic by the second. Are you just standing here in front of her, just having this inner monologue without saying anything to her? I braced myself, but she just looked down at the magazine in her hands. Oh, so she was just a slacker. Slightly disappointed I walked around the store. It was about what you'd expect. There was a small shelf with energy drinks, followed by some stationaries, travel goods, sanitary stuff, etc. There were sweets that came with toys, a shelf of cup ramen and dried food, a fridge, a freezer. It all looked normal. It was late, so the daily dish and packed lunch section was completely empty. The only special thing about this place was the section full of unpacked vegetables you'd expect to see at a greengrocer's. Maybe all rural convenience stores were like this? I was slightly surprised by that, but there weren't any local fine foods or anything, so all in all, it was an unremarkable store, if you ignored the clerk anyway. I took a drink and brought it to the register. I don't feel like that clerk would be at all out of place with an American convenience store. I mean, maybe in Japan this is different, but I don't know. She just sat there and grunted. Yup. She was really the highlight of this place. What kind of clerk smokes while dealing with a customer? That sounds ominous. Yes, I was actually buying. She was the clerk. And I be her god, the customer.
126 yen.
She didn't even scan it. This exchange was at the mercy of the clerk. God is dead. You ever had to get mad at her?
ちょっといいですか?
あ?
実は道に迷ってしまって。町はどっちにあるでしょうか?
あっち。
いや、できれば地図とか。
ない。
Haha, man, this woman.
いや、そんなはずはないでしょ。コンビニなんて大体道聞かれるから、地図は常備してるもんでしょ。
Really? I mean, they definitely get asked for directions, but I don't necessarily assume they're gonna have a map.
知らねえよ。ないもんはねえ。おとなしく来た道戻れよ。
もう数時間迷ってるもんで、これ以上はちょっと。
その辺の床で寝てけば。
She had to be joking.
お気持ちだけでいいんで、道だけちゃんと教えていただけたら。
ああもうせえな。待ってろ。
The clerk put out her smoke in the ashtray and went to the staff-only area. She came back in no time.
あったわ。
So she did have a map. Of course she did. Even more ill-tempered than usual, the clerk started giving an explanation.
これがこの店。で、十字路を北へ行け。しばらくしたら立教があっから渡れ。最初の分岐のとこに大岩があっからそこを右折して。
Do I need to remember this?
あとは直線。
Maybe need to. Probably not actually, but alright, you go north and then you go right.
この道？
んだよ。
いや、この先何も。
書かれてねえだけで富士吉村まで行くには峠道を2時間。こっちなら30分で着く。
It didn't look too far away, but the road leading to it was a huge branching mess. It was clearly just a paved mountain pass. I'd had enough of those for one day. I'd probably just get lost again.
じゃあ、こっち行ってみます。
金
はい。
払ってねえだろ。
Come on, dude.
茶のやつ。
They're not even overcharging.
ああ、じゃあ500円。
Alright, that's overpaying.
なぜお釣りを無断で募金箱に入れるんですか？
Or you want to change.
小銭多いとうぜえだろ。
I casually thanked her, grabbed the plastic bottle of tea, she didn't give me a bag by the way, and left the store. I drank the tea in the parking lot and looked up at the moon, obscured by the clouds. That's a good album. But still bright enough to outshine the light of the convenience store. The clerk put me in a bad mood though, so I didn't enjoy the sight. I threw the bottom into a nearby trash can and aggressively drove away. Following the directions, I crossed the overpass and arrived at the first fork in the road. The byway she told me about was really narrow. I probably wouldn't have noticed it if not for the tall boulder standing there like a roadside shrine of some traveling deity. Turning carefully, I got on the road. A minute later, I found myself in an even worse wilderness than before. A veil of dead leaves covered the ground. Tall grass sided the path, and the sky above was blocked by overgrown shrubs, making it feel like I was passing a wooden tunnel. The road itself was a huge red flag. It was a wonder why I didn't just turn around. Yeah, this totally sounds like a nightmare, dude. The exchange from before might have pissed me off more than I thought. That was pretty shady that she just kept the change. That's crazy. That was the first time she actually lived up to his expectations, really, in my opinion. But anyways, still. I didn't really expect the road to just end. It happened about 15 minutes in. The view ahead suddenly turned dark, and a split second later, the bike tipped forward. I reflexively hit the brakes, but it was too late. I started going down a cliff. My bike tilted downward, and its suspension was put to the greatest test yet, as we basically tumbled out of the bottom. The headlights suddenly shone on some dirt and grass. I knew then that I'd be flung out of my seat. What is this? Stifling a scream, I tried to work some steering and brake magic to slow down without collapsing. But that's too big a task for a simple road bike. At the bottom of the cliff, it jumped higher than ever before. The suspension couldn't handle the impact, and I was launched into the air. A moment later, I heard a crash and felt an impact, after which came an unpleasant pain. An An accident where I was flung out like that was a first for me. The launch was really something too. I did a 360 in the air and then fell on my back. My breathing stopped for a moment, and the pain was so bad that I thought all my bones shattered. It sounds like you got a wind knocked out of you. My face and limbs seemed pretty fine at least, though I wasn't sure if that counted as a silver lining. There was grass under my hands. It felt like even though the gloves... Well, I felt it even through the gloves. That and the smell of green made it pretty clear what I'd landed on. I pushed down. My hands sunk. This grass growth was pretty hefty. It was probably the reason why I came out relatively okay. Sure, my joints creaked when I stood up, but aside from that, it was fine. It was really dark, so I couldn't really confirm it, but I was pretty sure that I wasn't even bleeding. My bike, however, wasn't nearly as lucky. It was lying on its side a short distance ahead. The engine was still on. The back wheel kept churning, making an unpleasant fricative noise? Okay. Yep, it was busted. I walked up, killed the engine, and took the key. With the headlights off, I was surrounded by absolute darkness, so I just stood and waited until my eyes adjusted. I still couldn't see very clearly, but it looked like this actually wasn't a cliff. I was still on the road. It just wasn't paved beyond this point. Obviously, a road bike stood no chance against an unpaved road. That woman actually tried to kill me. Zigging through the trees, I followed the narrow footpath deeper into the forest. So I'm thinking a normal... There are dirt roads that I think a dirt bike would be able to handle, but this doesn't even look like a road. This looks like a freaking... like, nothing. Like maybe a walking path. I tried getting my bike up and running again, but instantly gave up. It was partially stuck in the mud, so there was risk of it slipping and getting me into another accident. Maybe I had to turn around? The moment I considered that, I saw a faint light ahead. If that woman wasn't lying, this road led to a settlement. Was I close? I reached into my jacket's pocket, took out my phone, and opened it. Oh! Usually in games like this, like they exist before cell phones lots of times, you know? So, we actually have a phone. Although, are we going to have a signal? Yep. As you'd expect, I was out of range. I ran the light app and shone a light to see better. Though weak, it was better than nothing. At the very least, it helped me watch where I was going. I had no idea how long I'd been walking for. But sure enough, I could see a light beyond the shrubs. It was weaker than I expected. A flashlight, perhaps? I could hear water, too. Yeah, definitely. I might have been near a river. I raised my voice. What time is it? Still declaring my presence, I walked forward. It was late at night. Were I to bump into someone here, the scare would probably take a few years off of their lives. That was why I figured it was best for both of us to let the other know we were here before that happened. However, there was no response. Could they not hear me over the rapids? I shone my light ahead and realized I'd made it to an opening. Sure enough, there was a river, or a stream rather. Yeah, I would definitely not call this a river. I could see slightly more than I had while surrounded by the trees. Straining my eyes, I saw a rocky river beach in the shadows. The light I'd seen was on the other side. From what I could tell, it was a lantern or a flashlight, and it was close to the ground. I didn't see any people, though. No one responded to my shouting, either. I wasn't excited about it, but I decided to step into the water. I have a feeling, since this is a time loop game, and like where you learn from previous deaths, and there's werewolves in it, we may just get like eaten alive right here. And learn nothing. And then somehow get to go back and change. I wasn't excited about it, but I stepped in the water. The cold water quickly soaked my shoes and socks. I could have taken them off, but I figured that crossing a river barefooted at midnight was a bad idea. Probably. But man, was it cold. I put my phone back in my jacket. I need my both hands free in case I fell. Not stopping or backing down, I walked toward the light. It suddenly became deeper. The water reached my knees now. That was too close for comfort. Too close to what? Feeling the bottom with my toes and balancing myself, I somehow avoided losing my footing. The flow was fiercer than I expected. If I slipped and fell, I'd probably washed away. It suddenly hit me I was doing something really weird, but it's too late to back down now. Putting my hands on the boulder and carefully checking what I was stepping on, I gradually made it to the other side. Then, with an unpleasant wet sound with my every step, I walked up to the light. I could see it clearly. Yep, it was a flashlight lying on the ground for some reason. Not a good sign. That music. There wasn't much space here. It was a narrow riverbank with a cliff right beside it. This is definitely creepy music. As you'd expect, I didn't see or sense anyone nearby. What the hell? Though old, the flashlight was working. The strength of the light told me the battery was pretty full. Yeah, that is definitely... I mean, like, why would there be a flashlight sitting there? Obviously, this person just got, like, freaking kidnapped or killed. Or they, like, heard you and ran away and dropped the flashlight? That seems far-fetched. So you'd think they would take the flashlight with them. That meant someone was actually using this tonight, or rather just a few moments ago. Exactly. That was the most logical conclusion. It obviously wasn't here yesterday afternoon or evening, of course. And yet the user was nowhere in sight. And I was near a river. Did something bad happen? Yes. Did the flashlight's owner step into the stream and get swept away? Probably not. Why would they do that? That was the most likely and worst possible... No, it's not the worst possible. It is not the worst possible. The worst possible is the killer just grabbed them and killed them, and they're standing right there watching you and waiting to get you. However, a flashlight was left there, practically buried in the pebbles. It didn't seem like someone had placed it there to light things up. It was the dead of the night. There was no way you wouldn't notice dropping your flashlight. Of course you wouldn't, when it was so dark. Right. The fact that a light source was left in the place like this was strange, but yes! With that considered, what was going on here? What if someone had heard my suspicious shouting and decided to... Oh my god. Okay, that'd be pretty bad too. What if someone had heard my stupid shouting and decided to lure me in with the light so they could ambush me? Where would they attack from? Above?
こんばんは。
I heard a voice the moment I looked up. The rock cliff was actually made of several boulders. There's a face peeking from behind one of them.
こんばんは。
あー、人だ。びっくりした。
That was my line.
悪いんだけど、それ撮ってもらえます？
Have I still not picked up the flashlight? I would have been picking that up and swinging it around and looking around. The voice was feminine. I finally realized what was going on.
落としたってわけですか。
I picked up the flashlight and pointed at the source of the voice.
にゃん。
You are also on the cover. Him, you, and Totoro-chan. High-pitched voice. Slender hand shielding the light. Sure enough, it was a young woman.
眩しいな。
お、失礼。ちなみにこっちはこういうものですが。
You shot the light on yourself.
怖いです。だから照らさない。
実は当方道に迷っており。
だとすると割と究極的に迷って
Yeah.
ます。
I've been driving, having nowhere where I'm going for the past few hours. And then I've abandoned my bike and been walking around randomly. Thought as much.
ここって一つ
難しい質問だな。
とりあえず
助ける。
雨露しのげて野生動物が
じゃあ打ち切ます？
And that was the conclusion she'd arrived at. Her face told me she was 100% serious. Place. My place. By that she surely meant a house, a settlement.
いいんですよ。頼んどいてなんですが遠慮を忘れて。
え？男として？
You just asked for help and you're stranded in the middle of nowhere and you would possibly turn this down?
ええ。いや違う。一個の生命として数時間前。
Yeah, of course you'd accept
バイ
this.
クでこげ。
あらら。 なら見捨てるのもどうよって感じじゃないです？
And so I was saved. Oh, the beauty of living beings looking out for each other.
じゃあ手いいです？
Is she a werewolf?
ここ一人じゃ登れないでしょ。
True. Honestly, I didn't even realize I'd have to. Meeting another person filled me with relief, which was followed by a sudden wave of fatigue. It wasn't crippling, though. She extended her left hand, so I grabbed it with my own left. Her slender fingers were stronger than I'd expected. Is she gonna eat you? The girl's name was Chiemi Sarazawa. Chiemi? I think that's right. I asked if she was related to the Shingumi guy. Who? Oh, probably some famous person with a name. But she said that her family had just adopted the name at some point in the Meiji period. She was a 21-year-old who went to college far away from here. This was her hometown, and she was spending her post-exams vacation here. We chatted about stuff like that once she'd led me out of the rocky ravine. There was actually a proper path, so the rock climbing was pretty pointless, but I was too focused on my footing to comment. She told me about herself as soon as we reached solid ground.
ちなみにそちらは？
名前は久石春明。東京で
あ、じゃあちょっと年上。
24だから芹沢さんと3つ違いかな。
How do you know he's older from that?
同世代でしょ。
Oh, graduate student. Okay. Missed that part.
ちえみでいいですよ。
じゃあ僕も呼び捨てた。女の子に親しくされてるみたいで嬉しい。
なるほど。実は私も堅苦しいのに。
どうぞどうぞ。ちなみに、
そうでもないかな。
What a lively girl. You could tell she was used to people.
ただ足元に気をつけて。あ、
何かあるの？
この辺石ころだらけで危ないんだ。あと今夜はずいぶん暗いしね。
I couldn't even see the moon anymore. Nodding in agreement, I focused on following the light in her hand.
ちょっと待っててもらえます？着替えちゃうんで。
And so I did just that. Given this was a mountain settlement, I expected some wooden house, but she actually lived in an apartment block. It was too dark to get a good look at. All I could see were the cheap-looking walls, like you'd expect to see for some old boarding house for students. She lived on the second floor in room 202. I'd heard some raindrops as we were climbing the rusty stairs, but now it was really pouring. Between that, the darkness, and the large tree right next to the building, it was nearly impossible to see what was going on outside. It felt like I was all alone in the world of nothing but walls, the door, the fluorescent lamp above my head. It made me feel somewhat helpless. I distracted myself from that by imagining her changing. What? That was a change of pace. Eventually, the door opened up.
お待たせ。上がって。
All smiles, she showed herself, now wearing sports clothes. This was kind of exciting.
なんにもないでしょ。
何にもないね。
でも冷蔵庫の中はほら。
素晴らしい。
飲みますか。
やったぜ。
What? You guys are getting dark now? Yep. Toga beer. I don't know what that is. Yeah, our place was really empty. Just a small room with a low table in the middle, a fridge near the door, and a large duffel bag to in. There were two old-looking bookshelves too, but they were completely empty. I wasn't bothered one bit though. Any girl's room was a wonderland to me.
じゃあ大変だった春明さんにお疲れ様。
地獄で出会った仏様に乾杯。
We opened up our cans and knocked them together and downed them. Hey, it was actually good. The pleasant bitterness and the refreshing carbonation made for a good combo.
美味しい。このためだけに生きてる。
その若さでそれはないでしょう。
言い過ぎた。愛や将来にもまだ絶望してません。
ところが就活という影が迫る。
いややめて、せっかくのビールがまずくなる。
She laughed and took a huge sip. It was pretty clear that she could hold her drink. That aside, something really bothered me.
お誘いに乗っておいてなんだけど。
何？
Her cheeks are already red. Maybe she didn't handle her liquor as well as I thought. Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, I don't know how you can say that yet. She had a well-featured face, and I didn't think it was wrong to consider her beautiful. Sure, her clothes weren't the least bit sexy, but I could tell that she had some makeup on.
僕は完全に正体不明の。
そうね。
君は年頃の女性。今は深夜。
おお。
身の危険を感じたりとかは？
She kept gulping the drink, even as she formulated a response. The very fact that I could just watch her do that made this a pretty risky situation, and yet...
あんまりないか。
それは。
芹沢千恵美クイズ。
イエーイ。
問題。
Oh my god.
低層が瀬戸際にもかかわらず、芹沢千恵美は特に身の危険を感
Because
じ
you're
ない。
not a virgin?
なぜでしょう？
But even that, I mean, there's... doesn't mean you make you immune to danger. What a fun girl. This only made me like her more, increasing the danger... What? Even further? I don't... What? Why is this dangerous to you? Why do you consider this a danger?
質問 OK？
どうぞ。
僕のことがいい人っぽいという答えは。
悪い人に見えるってわけじゃないけど、まあなしかな。女の子慣れしてそうだし。
That unintentional compliment showed that she actually did see me as a potential danger.
考えられる回答は大きく2つ。想定外だが何が起きても問題ない。もしくは想定通り。
No, I was considering that.
前者はいろいろ考えられるかな。例えば、ちえみちゃんが何かやけっぱちになっていて、どうにでもなれって場合、あるいは十分な自衛手段がある。実は護身術の達人で、僕なんか軽く乗せる。
ああ、論理的。春秋さん理系だね。
まあそうかな。一方で後者、つまりこの状況が。例
えば、私がエロエロですとか酔っ払ってきたな。さて、他には何があるでしょう。
Oh, god damn it. Is she really a werewolf? She brought us here to fucking kill us. It's possible. Indeed, what other reason could a woman have to bring a stranger to her home? It would surely be something non-standard, like...
僕の存在が君の利益になる。例えば、アリバイ工作。君がここにいた。
What?
後日僕が証言する。
Well, alright, maybe.
君が有利に。
Especially because we know it's gonna be like a werewolf game, right? Like a mafia game. Which, if you don't know, basically... There's like a certain number of people, like let's say 9 people, and there's 2 people that are werewolves / killers, and everybody tries to figure out who the killers are. So that would be giving her an alibi for the game, but... Exactly. Or she's a werewolf and she wants to kill you. What kind of sound effect was that?
ちなみに前提で出た2つのケースの他に、
あれ抜けてた？
私がとってもいい人で春秋さんを助けてあげたい一心だっていうケース。
Was it time for me to be ashamed of my filthy mind?
いやでもそれで自分が襲われるかも。
わあ、襲うって言っちゃったよこの人。
I stopped talking and turned red. It was so cute. I thought she was actually doing it on purpose. Man, she was drunk. And we were just on a second cans. What? I mean, you can get... If you haven't drank in a long time, you can get a buzz off of 2 cans, maybe? Even that's pretty hard. Because also, I usually drink like bottles. I think bottles have more than cans, too. Anyways.
めないともっとひどいことになる。それはさすがに忍びないなとか。
That's what I was assuming from the beginning.
ごめん、もうちょっと。
この辺りには怖い野生動物が出ます。明日このまま見捨てたらとても寝覚めのわ。
なるほど。リスクと善意を天秤にかけるってわけか。これは想定外。
I mean, this is what, honestly, I would never have brought this topic up because I would have just assumed it was this. Because, I mean, the odds are, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to get, you just, like, picked up some really bad guy who's going to, like, attack you. I mean, obviously it could happen, but, like, he's in need. So it's like, it's not like it's like, I don't know. And also, it helps that he doesn't look like a complete psycho, you know?
想定外か。この人だいぶ悪い人なんじゃないかって気が。
え、そう
だって善意を選択肢に入れる前にアリバイとかエロエロとかさ。
Yeah, honestly, I just assumed that would.
ヘロエロは君が言い出したんでしょうが。
そうだったっけ。
え、これって単なるバカバ。
正解者には素敵なプレゼント。不正解者はブッシュブッシュ殺します。
Oh god. Oh. I think it's this one. 20. What? So it's like you're actually a werewolf or whatever. Huh. Well, this is what I was assuming. Thirsty perv. What are these? I thought it's kind of the same thing.
Pimpon!
鹿とイノシシは実際見たけど。
月の輪だけどね。あんま。
なんてワイルド。
でも本当にヘビ、猿、カラス、クモ。
Crows.
ヘビ、猿、カラス。
Gross.
ヘビ、猿、カラス、クモ。
Alright, I just always like it when you hear like Japanese actors speak English. Or I guess that's the same word they have for it too. But huh? Were they venomous or something? I really doubted that. Those really didn't seem worse than bears.
あと、狼。
Indeed.
日本には狼はいないでしょう。
いるかもよ。
Werewolves.
こんな田舎には。まあ理由がどうあれ、まんまと美女宅に侵入を果たした春明さんは。
やめとく。
紳士、もう一本あげちゃ。
I wasn't too sure, but I felt like she dodged the subject. Perhaps I wasn't being cautious enough. But then again, I've been wandering around aimlessly for a long time by now. I had enough recklessness in me to enjoy sharing a drink with a cute, if shady girl. Is that really recklessness? I don't know about that. I would say it's more reckless on her part. But even then, I understand it. But the next day. Dots. The last thing I remembered was our little. When was the last time you pissed yourself off sleeping talk? I had to talk to her about the time I got so drunk I wet my pants in the middle of a boarding house. Wow. Yeah, I don't remember ever doing that. Maybe I did it when I was a little kid. Oh, I'm sure I did when I was a little kid, but I don't remember ever doing it. Ever. She laughed so hard, she started frothing at the mouth and passed out. I woke up with a splitting headache. Oh man. Morning already? Light poured in through the frosted window. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 7 in the morning. I'd gone to sleep somewhere between 2 and 3, which probably wasn't quite enough sleep. Yeah, you think? It's like 4 hours. Especially, although I don't know, I find it hard. Like after drinking a lot, lots of times I don't really sleep very well. Like I don't sleep long, it's hard. At least I didn't wake up to some horror movie scene. The building wasn't in ruins and the girl wasn't actually a skeleton. Though in a way this might have been worse. How is this worse? Oh, is she gonna throw up? She was spread out on the floor on the other side of the mini table. Her breathing was mixed with some weird gurgling sounds. I hesitantly looked at her. The saint that saved me from the hell I was in last night had puked in the middle of a sleep. Ugh, is she okay? I have done that. Not proud of it, I have done that one time. What was I supposed to do here? As a guest, I couldn't really be too harsh on her.
ちえみちゃん
That's good, because it's super dangerous. You can choke to death and die. Really dangerous. She wasn't waking up. And yeah, so much for her being able to hold her liquor. Well, I just do what little I could. There, that should be good enough. I'd used tons of toilet paper to clean up her mess and flush it down the toilet. It left a stain on the floor, but it was dirty to begin with, so whatever. So that's pretty nice of you. Cleaning up someone's puke and you just met the person. That's not everyone would do that. I'd even wet a towel and cleaned her face. Even then, she showed no signs of waking up. Some of it was on her hair and clothes. Oh, God. But I figured it was best if she took care of that herself.
ちえみちゃん
Oh, wait. Alright. So I agree with the rest. I would not wake her up right now. And let her sleep. It's been 4 hours. And she's, like, sick and hungover. Like, she could just use the rest right now.
朝
The first hint of consciousness was so far today.
ちょっと出ておくから
Without waiting for a response, I walked to the entrance. She'd have to take a shower and change and all that, so I'd kill time outside. I stepped into my still damp shoes with my bare feet. My socks were in the washing machine with a towel she gave me to wipe my legs, and reached for the doorknob. I opened the door and was greeted by a gust of wind. The raindrops gathered on the leaves of the trees next to the building, flew right in my face, making me grimace. I butchered that pretty badly, but okay. The rain from last night was already over. The sky was pretty clear, but despite that, I noticed the visibility of my surroundings was poor. The building was surrounded by leaves. The old structure was basically buried in a forest of trees about as tall as itself? What? Okay, the old structure was basically buried in a forest of trees about as tall as itself. It's a weird sentence. There were branches poking into the exposed hallway, and I almost felt like they'd reached out and grabbed me if I wasn't careful. Kind of felt like I was in an overgrown ruin. I turned around and saw the room. She and me, just as I left them. Yep, it was all real. I closed the door. There were other rooms in this building which made me wonder if they were occupied. Hell, I wondered the same thing about the area in general. I pushed the branches aside to see if there were any other buildings nearby. Suddenly, something entered my vision. Ah! I thought you just existed in the tutorial. That's what you told me. You liar. It didn't feel right. Something that shouldn't have been there. The leaves I moved revealed a woman clad in curious clothing. The moment I recognized her as such, she opened her closed eyes. Did our eyes meet? Yes, I think she's looking right directly at us. Another strong wind. I shielded my face from the spray of raindrops. When I looked outside again, the woman was nowhere in sight. Was it an illusion? If not, then what? What kind of place was this? So, alright, I can understand, like, I don't know. I don't even know if I can understand it. Does anyone in real life see someone like that and then think, oh, was that just an illusion? I mean, do you have illusions of people like that often? Like, or ever? I don't know about that. Anyways. It could have been a real Hicksville, a marginal village, a bunch of actual ruins, or an illegal settlement. I had some theories, but I'll set them aside for now. A legal settlement is a pretty far-fetched theory to come up with out of nowhere. It seemed like a place worth exploring, regardless. I mean, I guess it kind of does look pretty shady. Like out in the middle of nowhere, that building in particular looks kind of weird. I went down the stairs and found no sign of the woman, or anyone else for that matter. Oh, you mean that woman, okay. A short distance away from the building, I turned around and sure enough, it was pretty much covered in trees. I went to the place where I saw the woman. There were footprints in the grass here. Maybe I'd find her if I followed them? I would assume so. Okay, this looks even more shady. This is starting to look like where illegal stuff happens. They led me to an open area. It was unused, but it looked like someone was trying to do something with it. Was it supposed to be a construction site? Even if it was clearly abandoned. There were large rocks and a lot of sediment near a prefab. From what I could tell, there had been a giant landslide which forced them to stop construction. The fact that plant growth was still minimal meant it happened fairly recently. Footsteps seemed to be going downhill next to the site. Following them, I finally saw something that could be called civilization. There's a set of paddy fields with houses nearby. So this was actually a settlement. What a relief. I decided to keep following the footprints and approach the settlement. This looks like the woods to me. I came across another unpaved path that was clearly used by people and cars. It was lined with weeds and bushes reaching up to my waist. It was home to caterpillars and grasshoppers, among other things. Spiders were no exception. There was no shortage of insects here, so it was a good place for a net. I wasn't particularly scared of spiders, but I didn't like them either. At least they were just harmless orb weavers. Regardless, I avoided these bushes just in case and followed the path like a good city boy I was. There was a large boulder surrounded by grass. It was strangely tall, making it look like it was put there by people. On the dewy surface, there was a gray tree frog, ready to go after the many insects scattered about. I walked a bit further and came across a house with a small field nearby. The field's location made it safe to assume it belonged to the inhabitants. If there were inhabitants anyway, I couldn't see anyone, and just like always, there was grass everywhere. There was another boulder standing near the house. This one was obviously placed there by human hand. Alright, there's a lot of reading. This is fully text. I didn't know it would be this much. What was the point? Was it a monument or something? The footprints continued into the field. The wet mud on the field was full of small, young, but healthy-looking rice plants. If you ignored the standing boulders of the area, the place looked like a normal farming village. I was both relieved and worried at the same time. What I saw, there weren't any other buildings besides the ones in this settlement. Everything beyond was just mountains, meaning that this place was completely isolated. And I was a complete outsider. There was no way things would go well if I ran into a random local. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be bad. I was belatedly crouched to hide myself a bit. Okay, now that is going to make things go worse if you look like you're hiding. It's probably best for me to go back. Yeah, it's pretty weird that you're just leaving her. Chiami might have been looking for me. Suddenly, I heard a sound. I looked for its source and found a speaker on a wooden utility pole in the middle of a small plaza. I'm guessing this is calling everyone here? Morning broadcast? I'd never heard this tune before. It was cheerful at first, but it had some parts that seemed really dark. Are there? Have we not gotten to the dark parts? I found it unsettling. Perplexed, I stopped walking, and what happened next made me hide myself. There was a person in the area, densely surrounded by houses, but they weren't normal. What the fuck? What was with that appearance? What was that on her face? Though I was a fair distance away, I could see an aluminum of some sort with cloth over her face, shadily walking out from between the buildings. Oddly enough, there were boulders even there. But what was even weirder was the fact that she was walking up to one of them, lightly joined her hands, and bowed her head before it, her face still hidden. Then all was silence. It actually looked like she was revering it. To me, it looked like she was praying to it. Yeah. What? Why is this so bad? This was bad, really bad. I'd wanted her into Senate with a unique culture, to put it lightly. Forget causing trouble. An outsider like me could get killed here. What? I mean, it's weird. But I wouldn't think because a woman has a cloth on her head and she looks like she's praying to a rock that she's going to kill you. I just turned around and ran for it. I dashed up the hill, past the house, through the construction site, until I arrived back at the apartment building. Chiami looked like a relatively reasonable person. Maybe she could tell me what was up. It just hit me that the way she described this place was somewhat weird. She basically said it wasn't normal.
あるいはちえみちゃんが恐るべき殺人鬼で僕
はあ、ヤマンバいいね。ブッシュブッシュ殺しちゃう。
No way. What if she was actually the bait used to lure outsiders here? Alright, I don't know. I mean, she's fine. I don't think she would be bait. not, you know. I don't know. She seems pretty normal. Eventually, the broadcast stopped. Chiami still didn't come out of her room. She didn't respond even when I knocked her call out to her. I didn't have to worry about this, right? I mean, she could still be passed out. That just made my inexplicable unease grow worse. What if this was a trap? Was I in a dangerous situation? I had to talk to her. If she was just a normal person anyway. Maybe my best option was to run now. I don't know. I trust her. I wouldn't have left here in the first place. I don't know. I wouldn't know where to run. I couldn't remember the path we'd taken here. Though I was pretty sure we'd went uphill, so maybe I had to go down? This thing is, like, let's say if she really had nefarious plans, would she drink herself to puking? Like, it just seems like that's not what she was doing. Like, it seems like a weird thing to make you gain trust, but it kind of does, you know? Because it's just like you know? I don't know. I mean, she's showing kind of also that she, like, trusts you. So it kind of implies that there's no reason not to trust her, you know? Because people also tend to, like, untrustworthy people don't trust other people. You know, because they think everyone's like them. Like, thieves think everybody's going to want to steal from them, you know? So. If I avoided the settlement and went back down the mountain stream, I could escape by following the wild roads. Like, I don't understand how you're going to get out of here, though. What it seems like you need to do is, like, call a tow truck and get them to tow your bike and bring you along with you. Like, what are you going to do? Just freaking walk back to where? The convenience store? Kind of crazy. And who knows how many miles that is. No, I guess it wasn't supposed to be that far, was it? So I avoided the settlement and went back to the mountain stream. I could escape by following the wild roads. That was my best option. I don't know about that. Even with the difficulties considered. Thankfully, I'd taken my bag with me. Like, literally, what I would have done, I would have just handled this completely different. I would have just stayed in that freaking house. I let her sleep. Let her wake up naturally. And then maybe probably look for more help, you know? And be like, you know, I got to get my bike towed. You know, etc., etc. Like, it seems kind of weird to just, like, ditch her. Like, I mean, it's not like you owe her. Or it's not, I don't know. It just seems weird. I took out a 5,000 yen note and put it in Chiami's newspaper box. It was payment for last night's beer. $50 worth of beer? I would say more for the lodging. The moment I turned around to take my leave, the door to the room next to the staircase opened slightly with a creak. Oh, that's creepy. I saw... Well, not necessarily, though. Is it like a kid, or... I saw an eye glaring at me through the gap. Her high-pitched scream pierced my eardrums. I was scared, too. Scared shitless and ran for it. It seems like a weird reaction too, especially when you hear they're scared. If it was like a creepy person, you know, maybe I can understand this. But suddenly, I stepped on the wet hallway floor at a bad angle. I fell. Thud, thud, thud.
はるちゃんどうした？
うわ、誰このおっちゃん。
あなた誰ですか？
The reasonable sounding voice prompted me to shake off the pain and raise my head. Okay, the creepiest things about those people are their outfits. What the hell is that? Looks like military outfits. But they're like, this is a kid. Alright, anyways. There are two boys in formal looking school uniforms, I guess.
大丈夫ですか？
This just kind of makes me think of like the Hitler Youth or something. But anyways. Are you alright? He repeated the question.
ああ、ちょっと。
おっちゃん、知恵ねえの友達？
The girl you just hung out with?
ああ、ちえみちゃんのことか。
大学のお知り合いですか？お知り合いが来るなんて。
いや、いろいろあって助けられたんだ。
怪しいな、おっちゃん。
どうすればいいのかな。とりあえず、名前は。
僕は織部安永です。こっちは
Yasunaga. Oh god. Can you just be Chika-chan? Chikamochi.
モッチーだ。
Mochi, okay. Good to know. If I called him that, maybe he's stuck on the old man. I was only 24.
それでこっちが。はるちゃん何してんの？
だって知らない人が。
Apparently this Haro-chan was the person who looked at me through the gap in the door and screamed.
とりあえず大丈夫そうだから出ておいでよ。
A moment later, she slammed the door shut and after a few more moments of hesitation, opened it up again. Whoa. She looked like a student too, except her fashion sense is exceptionally flashing.
あなた、誰ですか？
久石春明と言って。
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
この
Isn't
近くでバイクで事故って。
she's Haro-chan and we couldn't be called. We could be called Haru something. I guess it would be Haru-kun.
それってもしかして。
Oh, we're adults and nothing happened. Calm down.
知恵ねえの部屋に。
あ、うん。
通りで騒がしかったと思った。何考えてるの？嫁入り前の女性の家に。
This is like set in modern day, so what are you talking about?
ああ、うん。それはその通りで。
ちえみちゃん？あれなれしい。
Oh god.
じゃあもしかしてドアに5000円挟んであるじゃん。
久石さん。
Oh my god.
まさか。
違う。単に昨日お酒をおごられたか。
ちえねえの体が5000円ってそんなただれてるな。
The hell are these kids saying?
ああ、君、助けてくれないか。
初対面で女性の部屋でお酒を飲んだんですか？そして知恵ねえが出
Crap,
て
I had no allies here.
一体何事？
And so, the subject of the conversation joined in.
おお、ちえみちゃん、君からも事情を説明。
You made me drink too much. Something was off about her aura. Did she black out? Or is it even worse? Is it like a different personality? What happened to the lively girl she'd been yesterday? Uh-oh.
知恵ねえまさか。
恥ずかしいとこを見られちゃった。
おお。いや、ちょっと待って。
もう嫁行けない。
What? Man, what a mess. Though Chiami's face was all pale, she was actually grinning. She obviously had a bad hangover, but that didn't stop her from messing around. After calming everyone down, Chiami explained what actually happened. How we met in the middle of the night, how she let me stay out at Goodwill, How we drank ourselves silly and nothing happened between us.
いやー、久々に深酒しちゃって思いっきり吐いちゃったよ。春秋。
ああ、いや、それはいいんだけど。
非常識。
ああ、うん、申し訳ない。
Whew. Alright, I don't know exactly how long this has been going on, but it's going on for a while. I'm gonna end the first video here. This seems pretty cool, and I think it's gonna pick up really fast. I think we're gonna learn what's going on in this village pretty fast too, so yeah, I'm excited for more. So, till next time.